IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach, and today we have a very special guest with us. She's coming on the Habit Coach podcast for a second time. The first time round, we discussed things like nutrition, and she came up with some fantastic recipes that many of the listeners wrote in saying, I love, and they've tried it out at home. And today we're going to be talking about something a little different, something that I've seen her talk about a lot. She's a very dear friend of mine, and I love the vibe that we create when we have our conversations. So, without further ado, Raashi Malhotra, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here for a second time talking about something entirely different but interrelated.
No, isn't it fascinating? The first podcast was fantastic. People loved the episode. They loved the food that we were talking about. And now we're talking about something that I thought was completely different, but you were saying, no, it's actually joined. There's synergy between it. So, Raashi, tell us, what is it that you've been doing and how has this journey been for you?
So initially when I came on, we were talking more about nutrition and healthy swaps. And that was when I had just started my journey as a nutrition coach. I had maybe 2 or 3 clients and I was developing recipes for a new cafe where I was basically trying to help people understand that nourishing food can be fun and tasty as well. But in the last 2 years, I have just gone so much deeper into my own journey. And I think discovered or unearthed something I knew since I was a child and something that all of us know. It's not just me. There's nothing special about me. But all of us kind of know this, that there is a higher power and wellness is interconnected and all of that, right? So I've gone much deeper into understanding the mind, understanding emotions, understanding of the quantum world, which essentially talks about the things that we can't see. So it's the energetic field, it's the universe and all of that. So I was so intrigued by all of this. And of course, I did all the work on myself. And now I've reached a space where I'm teaching my clients that as well, because I never felt very aligned with the idea of giving diet plans. And I've actually never done that even as a nutrition coach. I believe in providing frameworks and tools that empower people. And so over here as well, I'm doing that, but it's a more holistic perspective, helping people understand that health and wellness is holistic and it's mind, body, and emotions. So today, what I do is I help people live free, abundant, and intuitive lives by aligning their mind, body, and emotions so that they can live up to their highest potential and even manifest their dreams in this life experience, because that's essentially what wellness means. Well-being is a natural state of being as human beings. And well-being also means living abundant lives in the material world that we live in as human beings.
So Raashi, there's tons to unpack there, huh? You just spoke about everything in one tapak. So let's break it down into little bits, okay? So you first realize that just looking at food when you're dealing with people is not enough. Correct. There's so much more that people are going through. And I face this as well when I'm doing my habit coaching and somebody comes in with saying that I need to lose weight, I need to get my food place done. Half the time it is something much deeper that is preventing them from getting their food in place, right? You might have the best information. Like you said, I might give you the best diet plan, but there's a reason why people are not doing that. And what you realized was you have to get to that particular reason for what people are not doing, which is what you called, if I understand this right, the holistic approach to it. Correct? Where you spoke about the mind, body, and the emotions. So let's unpack this. Okay, so body we understand, right? Do your exercise, do your food, do all of that. Now let's unpack emotions and mind.
Okay. So this comes from my own life experience as well, where I was extremely restrictive where food was concerned. So initially I was an overweight teenager. And then I started losing weight. So I had an extreme behavior with food where I used to overeat to feel full so that I could fill my self-worth up. Because I was feeling emotionally deprived, my self-worth was low and I was feeling unloved. So I used food in order to fill myself up, right? So that's an extreme behavior. Then after that, I started losing weight, and it turns out that I could apply the same extreme behavior into losing weight. Now, once I started losing weight, that went to the other extreme where I became anorexic. I had multiple eating disorders. I was shopping in the kids section and I still wanted to lose more weight. I was bedridden and I still refused to have some sugar because that was the only thing my body would be able to absorb then, right? So these two extremities were both actually a form of abusing my body. And it
Correct.
wasn't because of food essentially, or how I felt about food. It was because of how I felt about myself.
Hmm.
Because I had so much emotional trauma that I was ignoring and not processing, that this was my way to distract myself from dealing with those emotions.
Hmm.
So my unprocessed emotions and my emotional trauma manifested into my eating patterns,
Hmm.
right? And where was that emotional trauma coming from? It was coming from my childhood experiences, but also the beliefs that were created in my mind as a result of my childhood experiences.
Hmm.
So eating disorders, etc., whatever. And then in order to really
One
reach this,
second. Does it always break down into an eating disorder, or is
no,
it always that extreme, or does it also have like it's a more subtle approach as well?
no, it can be a more subtle approach as well. It's just that my my experience was very extreme, and
Yeah, if you're
people's
shopping in the
extremes
kids
look,
section and
yeah.
you're 8 feet 9 inches or something tall, can you imagine what that kids section must be like? Guys, you don't know this, but Rashi is like super tall, but like imagine the mindset was that I need to get smaller, I need to get smaller, I need to get smaller, and
Yeah.
that is the important thing that you're getting at. You're never satisfied when you get down that journey and those kinds of states that you're in.
Exactly. And so I couldn't love myself, right? I was just abusing my body. I was filled with self-doubt, etc., etc. And then again, there was this other aspect of my self-worth being all about my weight and the way I looked and being a size zero, because that was all the rage at that time. And then I realized that, I just broke one day and I was just like, this is not what it is. This is not what health is. I'm just not feeling great. Like, this is, my mind space was so filled with calories and food choices, etc., that if I went out with a meal for my friends, instead of actually enjoying the conversation and having fun, I was thinking about how much I'd eaten the entire day, how many calories I'd be consuming in that meal, if I should eat one extra bite or not, right? And that was my mind space. And I think I reached this point where my life finally led me to understanding that health is about being strong. And then after that, it led me to healing, my own healing, where I went to therapy and I addressed all my emotional trauma. And the minute I addressed all my emotional trauma, my eating disorder went away. So I wasn't solving for the eating disorder, I was just focusing and processing on emotions, and the eating disorder went away as a result. So,
Correct.
what does this mean? That your nutrition choices, your food habits, and food behaviors, for a majority of people, are a symptom. They are a symptom of their mind and their emotions, of their mind space and their emotional space. They are not the cause of everything, right?
Interesting. Right. So
Yeah.
it is that, but what they are the cause of your eating issues, right? The emotions that you're going through, they're a cause of your eating issues to a certain extent. And and recognizing that that is happening is a critical aspect for us to take on board. Rashi, just let's take a quick break from a word from our sponsors before we get back to this. Did you know that your oat cookie has less than 10% oat? Brands get away with such creative lying all the time. The Whole Truth is India's first and only clean label food brand that declares every ingredient on the front of its packaging. So there's no need to turn the pack to find out what's in your food. There are some delicious protein bars, immunity balls, and a brand new range of vegan energy bars too. Enter the coupon code HABIT on checkout at thewholetruthfoods with an s.com for 20% off and make eating healthy a part of your daily food habit. All right, Rashi, we were talking about the emotions that were associated with food just now. How do you get out of it, right? Are there emotions of self-abuse that are there? Are there emotions of self-soothing, self-comforting? What are the ways in which that this emotion pops up, especially around this food and nutrition that we were talking about?
So, it's all a cycle and it's all interrelated. So it's a vicious cycle, right? You feel unworthy or unloved because of something that happened in your external life experience. And then as a result of that, food becomes a coping mechanism, which isn't always wrong, but once it becomes a habit, it shows up in your health. And it also creates guilt, which creates another emotion that you have to deal with. So it creates a cycle, right? So the only way out of anything like this is to create awareness. That is the first step. You have to create awareness. And the second thing is to have the intention to heal and the intention to change it. Correct? So the simplest thing that most of us don't do is asking yourself, why am I eating? Why am I eating this? How am I feeling in this moment? Is food the solution to this? Is this physical hunger? Is this emotional hunger? All of us know this because our bodies are so smart and we are naturally connected to our bodies. If we just started asking ourselves questions or journaling or things like that, we would understand what is happening. Right. So there are so many other tools that you can use other than food in order to deal with your emotions or process your emotions. And they aren't spoken about enough, but journaling is one of the biggest tools. Like all my clients journal about how they feel. And it's so important to sort of cultivate those as habits. Because if food became a habit at a certain point and it became your go to at a certain point, it's just a matter of consistency that your journaling tool will become a matter of habit after a while. You will condition your brain to say, I'm not feeling good. What do I do? Journal. Instead of I'm not feeling good, I need chocolate.
Correct.
So it's just basic, simple questions that you can start with first.
So how should somebody go about doing this, right? So they said that, I've tried every single diet plan that is there. I've tried, I've gone to 15 nutritionists. I want to lose weight or I want to put on weight, whatever it is there on their mind. How should someone go down this path? What is the first step that they should do? Like you spoke about awareness, then you spoke about journaling. So how should we actually create this? Let's create a structure for someone.
So I really think first thing is sit with yourself. Sit with yourself, create space on your calendar to sit and introspect because the answer lies within you. You already know what needs to be done. You already know whether the actual cause for your misalignment in your physical body is mental, whether it's emotional, or whatever it might be, right? So the first thing is introspect. And then the second thing would be to start with where you are, whatever you can do with where you are. So whether that means sitting and focusing on your breath for 3 minutes, or it means just, watching YouTube videos, maybe implementing just one simple habit in that week, creating half an hour for yourself before bedtime where you don't look at the phone, start where you are with what you can and work on one thing at a time, right? So it's about creating a supportive environment for your mind and your emotions as well, and also for you to be able to implement what you're learning. It's really difficult to put it into a structure. It's really difficult to put it into a structure because everyone is starting at very different places, right? And
Correct.
it's not always the same. Just because someone's journey is 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't mean the other person's journey will be the same. Their journey could be 4, 2, 3, 1. So you can't apply the same structure everywhere, but whatever you feel called towards the most and whatever seems easiest to you in that moment, in that day to start with your well-being, start there. It doesn't have to feel difficult. Don't let it feel separate from you. Let it feel achievable and easy. And that's where you start.
I love it. You spoke about something so important. One is making time for yourself. And half the time we have these issues because we don't spend time, like you said, introspecting. We don't spend time with ourselves. We don't listen to what we're feeling. We don't listen to what we're thinking. Correct? Our mind is constantly trying to tell us about these things. And we're just saying later, 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 later. Oh, new Netflix show. Correct? So there is always this that is happening in our mind. And what we can do is we can structure out time saying, for this 20 minutes, I'm going to just spend time with myself. If I don't know what to do, I'll stare out of the window. Correct? Let me see
Correct.
what happens and spend that time, blank time with yourself. The second thing that you said was very critical, which was start something, even something small. Start something, because what you're looking for is you're looking for those easy wins. You're looking for momentum. You're looking for something to push you, saying that, yes, this direction is happening, this direction is working. Instead of you trying on intense diet and within a few days stopping it, saying, no, I can't do it. Correct? Because understand that you're already in a weakened state when you start. Then if you try something harder, that weakened state is just going to continue. So I'm loving these because there are definite ways in which you can start approaching your life from understanding, how do I break it down into these aspects?
Yeah. And I'd also like to bring this into focus that it's we all live in this mindset because we've been sold this mindset that it's all or nothing, right? Or it's a 30-day boot camp, or it's instant gratification, etc., etc., and that what you want is separate from you, which is an ego way of thinking that's coming from an external space, from a space of wanting to be perfect, etc., etc.
Explain that a little bit.
So your ego basically believes that what you desire is separate from you. We all have an ego and we all have a higher self. So the ego is essentially more fear-based thinking, whereas your higher self is where most of your emotions from love come from. Every emotion and thought either comes from a space of fear or love. So the ego is more fear-based and the higher self is love-based, right? So the ego believes that what I want is separate from me and I have to work really hard in order to achieve it. Whereas your higher self believes that what I want is mine. It's already within me, right? So when you have to try really hard to achieve something, you're setting yourself up for failure. So think about what is easy for me right now, right? So when a lot of clients come to me, and this is what I know a lot of people face, so I can give you one step, but when a lot of clients come to me, they think they have to go. I think we spoke about this in the last podcast. They believe that they have to do something intense. They have to do something where they're burnt out. They have to do something that's like hit or it's 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. But if all they can do is dance for 15 minutes a day and that is their favorite form of movement, that's what I ask them to do. So identify what is my favorite form of movement and then do that for 15 minutes for just 3 times a week, not 6 times a week, 3 times a week, right? So get your body into the habit of doing it. You don't have to do from nothing to 7 days a week, 1 hour every day. Right? Start small, start easy, look at what's achievable. And like you said, it's about those small wins that boosts your self confidence, that builds momentum, and
Correct.
that will propel you forward naturally.
Absolutely. So, Rashi, you're talking about nutrition right now, right? There's so much more to all of this. There is wellness and everything like that. And you spoke about wellness. So, like, how do you think about wellness in this whole context?
So we spoke about nutrition and we spoke about diet plans, etc., right? But this is the truth. You don't need a diet plan if you are connected to yourself. You also spoke about being an overachiever in the workspace, right? All of these are just patterns, and your patterns are indicators of what needs to be healed within you because that pattern is coming from an emotional or a mental space, right? So the idea is to learn to connect with yourself and align your mind, body, and emotions so that you can constantly stay connected to your higher self, which is your energetic self or spirit or soul or source, whatever you want to call it, right? And when you do that, you naturally make choices that support your growth in life, that support you in realizing your purpose in life. And you also naturally make wellness, food, habit choices that serve you. They serve your overall well-being. So if you are someone who is connecting with yourself and who cares about your emotional and mental well-being, you'll naturally make food choices that serve you. You don't want to eat junk when your body feels like this vessel that is meant for delivering a particular message in this life. It's just facilitating the purpose of your soul on this earth, right? So it's so important to also realize that sometimes maybe it's not just the nutrition, it's not just the exercising, because I've had so many clients where we've only worked on mindset. We worked on the mind for 3 weeks, nothing has changed in their nutrition, but they've lost weight. Right. And they themselves are so surprised. So it's really a holistic approach, and it may seem like it's very complicated, but it's really not, because everything is interrelated. So if you constantly ask yourself, why am I doing this? You will receive a lot of answers. Just sit with yourself and ask yourself, introspect, you will receive a lot of answers.
This is such a powerful thing. And before that, you were getting into, you're talking about our soul and you're talking about a higher place. And there are people who necessarily like, ye kya hai? What is this, right? Now, it sounds like a little bit woo-woo. How do we break it down into saying that, no, there's a purely logical way of approaching this, right? There's a purely logical way of thinking about it. And, that is very important for us to talk about as well. Yeah. How do we get down to making this woo-woo a little bit more tangible?
Yeah, agreed. Completely agreed. Because that's exactly what I teach in my program, right? If I tell you this, you're probably like, she's talking bullshit. Let's switch the podcast off.
Correct.
But see, all of us know one thing. We can all experience energy. There's a reason we can say good vibes and bad vibes. Why? There's a reason why when you enter a room and two people have fought, you're like, oh my God, I could cut the energy with a knife, right? Because it's dense. And at the same time, when you're on the beach and there's reggae playing and you're having margaritas or pina coladas, it's light. You feel like, oh, it's high vibes, it's good vibes. So we all know that we can feel energy. That's why when you meet a person, you're like, oh no, I don't like this person. Even before they say hello, that's because they don't align with your energy, right? And there's also this exercise that you can do where you can just hold your palms together, close your eyes, and then just feel the energy and try and bring your palms together. Right. And when you do that, you will feel that something is pushing against both your palms. And that is energy. So that energetic body, that energy around you is your energy field. And that is a result of your energetic body, which is nothing but an expression of the spirit side of you, which is your soul. Right. So it may seem like a lot of woo-woo, but there's a practical application to it. There are steps to manifesting, as we were talking about when we were just casually chatting. So there is a practical way. But I have to say this, the only way you can experience it is by experiencing it. So you just have to give it a shot and say, okay, I have nothing to lose by trying it, and then try it on for size.
Correct. It's so interesting that we keep thinking that we have 5 senses, right? We have sight, smell, touch, taste, etc. But science is now showing we have way more senses than that. For example, where does a sense of balance come from? Right? It's a sense. Where does the sense come from when somebody is staring at you and you know that somebody is staring at you? You can feel those eyes at the back of your head. Correct? Where does that sense come from? And you start noticing, like, sense of heat. Where does sense of heat? It's not a sense of touch. It's something else. So there are senses that we have not been taught about in school that we experience and use on an everyday basis. And a large part of, when we talk about, gurus and saints and all of that, we talk about consciousness. And consciousness is nothing but tapping into another sense of yours. Imagine the amount of things that you can be conscious about. Can you be conscious about, like, am I conscious about the kids playing downstairs football? Can I start, like, the larger your sense of consciousness, the more you're taking things in. And one way of thinking about all this stuff is, like, if you don't want to get lost in souls and stuff like that, just think of it as a sense that you have never used before, that you can practice to start understanding a little bit more. It's like if you were born with your eyes closed and they never opened, and suddenly you could open them and you experience the sight for the first time. That's exactly what it feels like, right? And that is what we're looking at. And we're saying that the only way to do this is to experience it. And once you experience it, you can start maybe trusting it a little bit, and then taking it the next step, loving it. What an interesting conversation, huh? We started talking about food, and now we've come into understanding energy, right?
Yeah.
Does all food have energy?
Yeah, I believe so. I definitely do. I once asked someone who I'm actually going to be studying under in Feb, but I asked her, I was like, she's a plant and animal communicator. Her name is Manjari Latte. And I asked her, I was just like, I was asking her about veganism. And I just said that, since you can communicate with plants and animals and things like that, do you believe that it's different when you are a non-vegetarian and when you are a vegetarian, because, the energy or the life is different? So she said, no. When you are sowing a seed with the intention to harvest it and eat it, it already knows the intention with which you're sowing it. So it knows that what the ultimate purpose is, and it's the same with an animal. Correct. Same with a wild animal, and it's the same with a domestic animal, and one that you are basically livestock, right? So all food has energy, you have energy, everything has energy. Basically, we are all energy vibrating at a particular frequency.
And Secret Life of Plants, fantastic book that talks about how plants have emotions. Crazy studies done there where they attach the plant to a galvanometer. So now we're talking about science, right? We're talking about actual physical experiments in a lab. So they connected to a galvanometer, which is your galvanic skin response, basically what we use for lie detectors. And a person entered the room, no change in the response. Someone went and plucked a leaf, the plant responded in a crazy manner, dials flying all over the place.
Oh my gosh.
Once it calmed down, another person entered the room, no response. The same person who plucked the leaf comes in a few days later, and the plant goes bananas. Right? Now, where do we say the plant doesn't have emotion? Right? When you're talking about energies, slowly we are getting into this part of science also that's talking about this. And I'm finding this very, very exciting. Because I've been saying this for the longest time. Like, if you're saying that I'm going vegan because animals have emotions and plants don't, it's rubbish. Correct? Because, like we say animal farms, but where did the word farm come from? It came from vegetables. So obviously the farming practices are just as horrible as what we think about when we think about these large cattle feeds and stuff like that. But that's a separate discussion altogether. But understanding that energy exists is so important.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Energy is nothing. Emotions are nothing but energy in motion. Emotion. Okay.
Hmm.
And just as you're talking about these experiments that are happening on plants, there are so many experiments that are happening on human beings with the same thing, with the
Hmm.
quantum field and
Hmm.
with the energy around them. And people are using gratitude in order to see how it impacts a person's immune system. Dr. Joe
Hmm.
Dispenza has done this, where he said just by practicing gratitude for 4 days, for 5 minutes every day, a person's immune system improved by 50%,
Hmm.
right? So we do have all of this being backed by science. It is science. It is not woo. Everything is energy at the end of the day.
Hmm. But like,
Yeah.
there are still people who are skeptical about these. Should we, they're saying that, no, but I want to feel it. I want to sense it. And I think the best way of doing this is actually for a week or 2 weeks, experiment with it, play around
Yeah.
with it, right? If you want to say, then put yourself in the spot, experiment with it, see what Rashi is saying, and try making those changes. Correct? Like we're going to be
Yeah.
talking about this more in the second episode, but start off with this first part, understanding your emotions, doing your introspection work, understanding where you're coming from, then slowly start making that momentum in whichever direction you want to take. I think that is a fantastic first couple of steps in what we're trying to achieve. Like if you want a change in your life of anything that you want, these are the first steps going to be. What is working for me right now? What is not working for me right now? That's all the introspection journey. Correct? And then next step, next step, next step. Like,
Yeah.
Rashi, I keep saying that on introspection, never ask why, right?
Mm.
Why is a blaming word, right? Why is this not working for me? Instead, ask what, right? What can I do?
Mm.
What can I do? How can I? And those are better words to start your introspection journey on.
Yeah, I agree. I remember reading that post of yours and I remember incorporating it into my journaling as well. And definitely the emotional part of it is something where you can use the journals to process it. Just write how you're feeling without judgment. Without
Hmm.
judgment, you're allowed to feel guilt, you're allowed to feel shame, you're allowed to feel anything you want to feel. That is your safe space. Just write it all down. Just write it
Hmm.
all down. That's an excellent way to process it so that that dense energy does not remain in your body.
But in your experience with your clients, is it easy for people to understand what they're feeling?
Yeah, it is. They know how they're feeling, but they believe they don't have a safe space because society has told us that being vulnerable is bad, that having emotions like guilt is bad. Like we are shamed by people, but at the same time, like society encourages shaming at a certain level, but at the same time, we aren't allowed to feel shame,
Hmm.
right? But we have that emotion for a reason. We have all our emotions for a reason. They are not separate from us. They are not bad. They aren't against us. They're all just helping us process this world around us because emotions are energy in motion and we are just processing the energy that we experience on a daily basis. That's
Hmm.
it. So it's
Hmm.
important you acknowledge and accept your emotions without judgment.
And motion matlab, it can come, it can go also. And that is the important thing, right? As soon as
Yeah.
your emotion comes and it's stuck, it's not in motion. Correct? So the
Yeah.
whole idea is the emotion has to come and the emotion has to go, and you have to allow it to go. Very at
Yeah.
times we're stuck with that emotion, we're not allowing it to go. And that's
Yeah.
where a lot of our trauma starts, and a lot of the ways that we are stuck in life starts from.
Yeah. My
No?
favorite quote, if we can end it with, is that no feeling is final. Usually, when we feel an emotion, we feel like this is the end, this is it, I'm never going to feel anything else. But no feeling is final. So allow yourself to stay with that thought instead of wanting to, go deeper and deeper into the wound. Just allow the wound to heal by telling yourself, this will pass. It's not final. I will move on to something else.
I love it. Feelings are not final.
Yeah, they
Feelings
aren't.
are not final. I think that's a beautiful place to end this podcast on. Rashi, thank you so much about having this discussion with us. Where can people find you? How can people get in touch with you?
They can find me on Instagram on at wellness by Raashi. I'm just starting my YouTube channel. I'm posting the first video this weekend. So that will be uploaded on my Instagram as well. But Instagram is the best way, and that leads you to my website and that leads you to booking a session with me if you want to, where I'm happy to chat with you for 30 minutes just to understand where you're coming from. And that's what I call a discovery call.
Discovery call. Love it. Tell me the Instagram
Yeah.
handle again, please.
It's at wellness by Raashi.
Wellness by Rashi. Raashi. And
Correct.
have you figured out what your YouTube channel is going to be called?
It's just going to be called Raashi Malhotra, Wellness by Raashi, or Holistic Daily. I'm still allowing myself to find out what it will be called.
Get creative. Do something more fun. All right, Raashi. Thank you. I'm going to see you in the next episode now.
See you. Thank you.
My pleasure. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome 180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Storytel and The Whole Truth Foods. Thank you for supporting us. So a great bunch of episodes this week. First, let me tell you about The Note with Maruk Inayat. It was featuring Asaduddin Owaisi. She spoke to the AIMIM leader to understand what the Indian Muslim voter wants and how his party is any different from the BJP. On Advertising is Dead, Varun spoke with Malika Sadani. Malika is the founder and CEO of the Moms Company. They discussed the science of motherhood. On Naan Curry with Sadaf and Archit, Dhananjay Chuck of the Edges and Sledges podcast showed up, so we did another crossover, this time with food and cricket. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ritasha and Ayushi talked to Gaurang Sangvi, head of digital business at DSP Mutual Fund. The episode has some logical and realistic advice, especially for millennials, on how to invest their money. Shunya One is back this week with Sheila Ditya and myself. We spoke to Anirudh Singla of Pepper Content this week. Really interesting conversation. Anirudh gave us some real deep insights into content creation and how they're thinking about different ways of creating it. Do check them out. Really fun show, really fun conversation. And with that, we hope to see you again next week.
Come learn and experience the ABCDs of being queer with me, Shunetro.
And me, Farhad.
On our show, Gay BCD.
The two of us take you through our stories and experiences of being gay men in the city of Mumbai and have candid
and sometimes downright scandalous
conversations about sexuality, gay culture, and everything in between.
Catch new episodes of Gay BCD every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get all your podcasts from.